Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mang. Welcome back for some more solo role Mangging. Last time we had we had an attempt at playing Dungeon Crawl Classics and Caverns of Thracia, and we got a TPK before we got even into the caverns, so that just did not go well. And so I was thinking about another attempt at Caverns of Thracia, but using like Tales of Argosa, which I'm very familiar with and enjoy, or maybe even Shadow Dark, which is another system that I enjoy quite a bit. And I started looking into some Shadow Dark stuff, and I was on Drive Through RPG. And if you look into Shadow Dark third-party material, you're going to end up looking at Chubby Funster's stuff eventually. Like, he's one of the most popular, if not the most popular, sort of third-party author of Shadow Dark stuff. It's not his real name, of course. His real name is Greg Christopher, but he goes by Chubby Funster. And so I picked up a bunch of stuff that he has put out for Shadow Dark. I also picked up like a campaign setting that he put together for Axe, which based on the preview looked really like robust and interesting as far as like a sandbox campaign is concerned, that has kind of all that Axe essence to it of like the nitty gritty, you know, of like keeping like it has I saw a big table of like the value of various goods in each settlement, you know, and how valuable salt is in that settlement, and how valuable like textiles are, you know, like I love that kind of shit for a big sandbox campaign. So we may get to that at some point, but while looking through his stuff, I saw this Ambition and Avarice 2nd edition, and this is not something for a different system. This is a system. This is an OSR system that he has put together. This is the 2nd edition, obviously, and apparently the 1st edition was like the first thing that he ever like put out there and charged money for. So this has kind of been a long-standing project of his, I guess. And this is one of the least discussed like OSR systems I've ever seen. There is not a single thread on Reddit discussing this system at all, which is crazy. So it's really lesser known. Even like Heroes of Adventure is discussed more than this. And so I really like a lot of what he writes. I like a lot of the material that he puts out, you know, for Shadow Dark and things like that. You know, his supplements, his modules, stuff like that. It's all really good stuff. And the reviews that were there for this system on drive-through were really like high praise. And they were just like, it's going to be one of those systems that like everyone should play, but no one's going to play. And I was like, I can't be one of those people. I gotta give it a try. So I picked it up. I didn't splurge on the actual physical book yet, you know, because you never know. But I bought the PDF, and so we're gonna go through it. This is gonna be kind of a let's read. Initially, I have the fillable character sheet if we want to put together a character, and if we like what we see, I'm very much interested in doing at least like a one shot, if not trying Caverns of Thracia with it. But we'll see how it goes. It is, like I said, OSR. So it is, as far as I understand, fully compatible with any other OSR thing, old school module, all that sort of stuff. It's based all around that. But yeah, we're going to see. I haven't really looked at it much. So this is going to be kind of a first time look. It's 374 pages, which is quite hefty. But this is like a player book and a DM book. So it contains the whole bestiary, which is a big chunk of it. Treasures, a whole DM section. For DM advice and blah, 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 blah. But we're mostly interested in the player stuff for now. And yeah, it definitely doesn't feel that old school. If you look at just like the character creation contents, you've got a bunch of different races, including, you know, some ones that are kind of out there, like Hobgoblin, Lizard Folk, Dark Elves, Goblins. I mean, Not many OSR core rulebooks are going to have that in it. And then classes. It's certainly not the 4 pillars. You've got some very odd ones here. Brigand, Conjurer, Cultist, Enchanter, Savage, Zealot. I'm sure some of these are going to be pretty familiar and just renamed. But, like, I'm sure the Savage is pretty similar to a Barbarian. But, yeah, I'm very interested in seeing how this goes. So let's just get into it. I do like to read these sort of, these kind of introduction, sort of how to play sort of thing. It gives you a really good feel for, like, what the author intends for their style of game and stuff like that. But just to cut down on the length of this video, I don't think we'll read through all this. Mortality, though. Characters begin play at first level, blah, 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 blah. Damage, hardship, and death is a part of the game. It's important to accept death as a possibility. Yeah, that sounds like an OSR game for sure. First objective is to explore the world. If you don't want to explore the world, don't play. Read a book, play a video game, or curl up with your lover. Why you gotta do me like that, man? Second objective of the game is to survive. The risk of death is very real. The judge doesn't want to kill you any more than the referee of a sporting match wants you to lose. That is very important. That is a very important thing to keep in mind. Their goal isn't your success or failure, but in providing a clean and fair setup where you can make your own choices. The judge is not your friend or ally. They cannot rig the game in your favor. Yeah, this is a very old school way of thinking, and it's something that I just keep gravitating towards more and more as, like, a DM and sort of as a player. It's very much not in the vein of, like, modern RPGs where, you know, you're sharing a story together and blah, blah. It's like, no, the DM is just there as a judge, as a referee, as an arbiter. They have no feelings one way or the other, or they shouldn't have any feelings one way or the other about your success or failure. I mean, it is a tricky thing, because there's no one that's, unless you have an AI, like, robot as your DM, a DM is going to be a human. They're going to have human biases and human emotions and things like that. And when I DM, it's like, you know, I do want the players to succeed because they tend to have more fun that way. At least, you know, for the group I DM for. But it's very important not to rig things in their favor or alter things just to their benefit that shouldn't be altered. Alright, so we don't have any specific setting for this game of any kind. It's meant to be very generic fantasy. Yeah, okay. A lot of various advice. Again, it's good stuff to read. Especially if you're just getting into, like, an OSR game. I can't imagine this would be anyone's first OSR game, but again, you gotta write that section as if it is. Alright, so standard resolution, D20 plus ability modifier, skill modifier has to be greater than or equal to the DC. Pretty standard old school stuff. This isn't Tales of Argosa that flips it on its head or anything. And we have ability scores. 6 ability scores ranging from 3 to 18. Strength, Dex, Con, Int, Wiz, Charisma. Again, very standard. Modifiers range from -3 to +3. DCs are going to range between 10 and 20. 10 represents something an average adventurer would fail roughly half of the time. Anything that would require a DC less than 10 is just not risky for you. It might be a challenge to a normal person, but not for a seasoned adventurer. Anything that would require a DC over 20 cannot be accomplished by normal means, only through magic or exceptional luck. Yep, that's fair. It's all fair. Skill tests. Each use of a skill test requires at least a full turn, 10 minutes. If you fail the task, generally cannot be attempted again. Okay. So we have skills in this game. breakage, climbing, direction, dominance, examination, foraging, knowledge, leadership, mechanics, and stealth. So they all have an extra modifier if you're doing one of those skill tests. It's a little tricky to get used to then, because you kind of have to memorize this list as a DM, so you're calling for the right thing. Because you don't want to call for just a dex check if what you really need to be calling for is, like, I don't know, a foraging check or something. I don't know. Again, it helps if your players are knowledgeable of the rules and invested as well, so that they can be like, hey, I think this is actually a mechanics check instead of just an int check, or, you know, whatever, or what have you. We'll see how that goes. Saving throws. Magic spells often allow a saving throw to resist their effects. Blah, blah, blah. DC 10 and 20. It's basically the same thing. This functions almost identically to an ability test, but is not driven by your actions. The saving throw is forced on you. Combat is divided into rounds, represent about 6 seconds of game time. Each round has 4 phases: declarations, initiative, actions, and checking morale. So this is, yeah, sort of a first edition AD&D kind of thing. Similar to Axe. Declaration signify an intent to cast a magic spell or aim with a ranged weapon. Spells do not generally require a roll to cast, but may trigger a saving throw. You declare spells and aimed attacks at the start of the round, and they are resolved after everyone else has acted. Ooh. Yeah, that's a little different for a lot of people compared to, say, Shadow Dark. Initiative is a simple test to determine who gets to go first, your side or the opposition. Each side makes a 1d6 roll. Side with the higher number goes first. Wow. That's very simple. Side-based 1d6 straight up. If targets are reduced to 0, they're incapacitated. If reduced to -10, they are slain. Okay, that's pretty nice. At the end of the round, any wounded or shocked non-player characters must roll for morale or else flee the battle. Special 2d6 roll against a number ranging from 2 to 11. If they roll higher than their morale, the NPC will attempt to flee the battle. First combat round is a surprise round. Characters that succeed on an awareness test, a special test using wisdom as a modifier, can take actions. All other characters must wait until the second round. Interesting. Well, we'll get to the full rules on that, but that seems interesting. There's always a surprise round. So yeah, I guess that just represents, like, you're just faster than everyone and you can react faster. Interesting. Alright. Character creation. Yeah, retainers. Goes into retainers here. There are 4 types of retainers. Henchmen, recruited almost exclusively for their combat ability. They either have a hit-to-hit bonus or minor spellcasting ability. You must pay them a regular salary, and you bear the cost of equipping and feeding them. They do not gain experience, they are simply mercenaries. Hirelings are retained almost exclusively for their non-combat abilities. They have a specialty and a narrow expertise, such as cooking or herbalism. You pay them a regular salary, they do not gain experience. Expert hirelings do not travel with the party. They have large bonuses to an expertise, such as a fortifications engineer or well-educated monk. So we're already setting up here for, like, domain kind of play, right? Like bigger scale. You know, if you want to get a wall built, you're not doing it yourself. You're hiring experts, and there are rules to enforce that sort of stuff and allow for that sort of stuff. And then followers, characters that serve you because of your class. They are very loyal and usually have high morale, but this may be reduced if you treat them poorly. They typically have few hit points and do not gain levels. Follower will require some kind of support, either magical or in the form of a salary. And then there's also companions, fully formed characters built using the same generation method as your own character. They must be paid a portion of the treasure recovered by the party. This allows them to gain levels and XP, but at the cost of your own potential gains. Other party members are free to insist that you pay your companion share out of your own portion of the treasure. Okay. So you have basically just very simple combat mercenaries. You have to pay them a regular salary, you have to feed them, equip them, and they just participate in combat. Hirelings, you might just have them tag along to do your cooking for you or something like that. Or maybe be a doctor or something. Expert hirelings that are like, they don't adventure at all. They're in town and they're doing work for you or at a village or, you know, whatever, building for you, so on and so forth. Followers are specifically something you get from your class, usually at a high level. And yeah, it depends on the class and what they are and everything. And then there's companions, which are like the actual full-fledged kind of hireling thing that get a portion of the treasure, get XP, level up, and you can actually take them over as your own character if you die. This is all, again, fairly similar to like, you know, first edition AD&D or Axe or something like that. But I'm glad that it's going to codify all this stuff. Alright, a checklist for filling out your character, starting with abilities. The recommended way of generating ability scores is by rolling 3d6, a total of 6 times. You should then assign each result to one ability. Ah, okay. So that's not down the line then. If you are feeling lucky, assign them in the order they were rolled. So that is not the default recommendation. If 2 or more of the results are below 7, or the total of all ability scores is less than 55, you may declare the character hopeless, discard them, and roll again. If you want characters that have above average ability scores, you can roll 4d6 for each ability and drop the lowest die. And there's also an array. Now, I know that Chubby Funster is a fan of Axe. Like I said, he put out a whole, like, campaign setting for Axe. So it's interesting that he didn't want to go for Axe ability generation, which is, I think, 5d6 for 1, 4d6. So 5d6 drop lowest 2 for 1 of your stats, 4d6 drop lowest for 2 of your stats, and then 3d6 for the other 3. I like that method because it allows you to sort of specialize in one thing. But yeah, it's not super old school. At least he acknowledges that you can assign each result of your 3d6 rolls. Okay, so we can't use Foundry. There is definitely no module for this system in Foundry, so we're gonna have to use Owlbear Rodeo, which I like quite a bit. It's what I use when I'm DMing at a table, because everyone has physical character sheets. So I don't need all the fancy stuff of Foundry. But yeah, so we should have a dice roller. Okay, so 3d6, 4. Okay. 10. We'll just go along with the character creation and whip up something. 13. 14. Okay, we're getting kind of lucky. I spoke too soon. 8. And 14. Okay, I definitely don't think our total is less than 55. 14 plus 14 plus 13. Oh yeah, definitely not. Plus 10 plus 8. Yeah, okay. So no, this is a valid character. We cannot declare it to be hopeless. Unfortunately, he doesn't really excel at anything. We see the ability modifier table there. 9 to 12 is plus 0. 13 to 14 plus 1. 15 to 16 plus 2. 17 to 18 plus 3. Supernatural. Keep rising. Okay. So I tend to lean towards spellcasters, but This character is not really exceptional at much. So we're just going to make him a standard sort of fighter type character. We're going to go with 14 strength, 14 dex, 13 con. We'll make him pretty dumb, so I have a 4 intelligence, a 10 wisdom, and an 8 charisma. So that means that he's got +1 strength, +1 dex, +1 constitution. Nice. He's got a -3 intelligence, +0 wisdom, and a -1 charisma. Done. Alright, so strength. The strength modifier is added to damage and to hit tests with melee weapons and thrown weapons. Breakage tests to force open chests and doors. Ability test to throw objects accurately over a distance. Ability test to lift heavy objects for a short duration. Competitive feats of strength. And any similar situation judge feels should be decided by your strength ability. Armored shields also have a minimum strength requirement. So we can wear up to heavy armor, no problem. It's not that high of a requirement, but yeah. I mean, you do have to have above average strength. Yeah, if you have like 4 strength, you can't even wear light armor. Dexterity, added to damage and to hit tests with projectile weapons. Interesting, it adds to damage. Nice. Saving throws to resist something can be avoided through quick action. Foraging test to find food and water in the wild. Climbing test to move up difficult surfaces. Stealth test to conceal your presence or actions. Ability test to perform a single quick movement, and any similar situation. It's also added to your armor class, thus making you harder to hit in combat. And your speed of movement. Okay. Yeah, so this would be 35 feet combat speed, 140 feet cautious speed, and an overland travel rate of 26. Okay. So, well, we'll get to the skill bonuses in a bit, I guess. Constitution. Modifiers added to your hit die roll at every level. Counts towards saving throws to resist an effect that injures or impairs your physical functioning. The amount of hit points recovered by a day of complete rest. Really? That's... Oh, it's added to the amount. Okay, yeah, I was about to say, like, you have 0 con mod, you never heal. No, it's added. Ability test to hold an object aloft for a period of time. A similar feat of endurance. Continue to take action despite extreme pain or physical exhaustion. Any similar situation. And it determines your encumbrance. Your max carry capacity. So our encumbrance weight. We have 13 con. So if we are carrying above 70 pounds, we have half movement. And if we are carrying above 140 pounds, we have no movement. So they're going for a weight-based system. Which is, again, similar to Axe. It's the nerdiest way to go, for sure. When a character is created, the player rolls 1d6 to determine starting hit points. Their con modifier is then added or subtracted from this result. Interesting. Every class gets a d6 hit die. And monsters are based around a d6 hit die. I wonder how that interacts with, like, old school published material or other OSR material. It's an interesting decision. Intelligence, added to knowledge test to remember information, mechanics test to use or disable strange devices, ability test to understand incomplete or heavily accented speech, as well as poor or damaged writing, any similar situation. So my intelligence score is 4. So I can only communicate with grunts and pantomime. Okay, it's like a low intelligence Fallout character or something. Great. So if you have 9 to 12, you actually get an additional language of your choice, which is pretty nice. You're still illiterate, though. You got to get hit 13 to be at least literate. Yeah, it's not common. Here's the languages. Abyssal, Celestial, Common, Draconic, Dwarven, Elven, Giant, Goblin, Orc, and Sylvan. Very sort of Forgotten Realms, I gotta say. This is very, like, modern D&D list. And again, he's going for a very generic kind of fantasy setting there. Wisdom added to direction test to avoid getting lost. Examination test to study an object or person. Awareness test to take action during the first round of combat. Awareness test to notice danger before it is too late to take action. Saving throws to resist an effect that corrupts or impairs your mind in any similar situation. A lot written about charisma there. Added to leadership test to inspire and manage others. Dominance test to control undead, elementals, and summon creatures. All reaction rolls. All hiring offers. And any similar situation. Alright. Alignment. A lot written about alignment. All entities in the game fall in a continuum between law and chaos. You must determine where your character falls along this continuum. This choice is not permanent, but changing your mind during gameplay is costly and painful, often involving immense personal struggle and focus. The majority of player characters should be of lawful or neutral alignment. Wow, yeah, he's a fan of alignment. If I was writing an RPG, I'd probably just be like, yeah, we don't use that shit. I just don't tend to care about it. I think players can just act however they want to act, without some cosmic force sort of pushing them in a certain direction. But I can see how it can be helpful for some. I don't know. I don't hate it. Like I won't refuse to use it or something, but yeah, and especially using like old school spells and stuff like protection from evil or you know, protection from chaos or something, like, you know, I get it. So let's see. It didn't have us pick a race yet, did it? Oh, here it is. Okay, we'll get to that. We're gonna be named Grug. Our alignment is gonna be neutral. Alright, race. There are 2 types of races, civilized and barbarian. The judge may decide to restrict your choices to one of the 2 groups to reflect the flavor of the campaign they want to run. Civilized races include dark elves, dwarves, gnomes, hobgoblins, and humans. The barbarian races include elves, goblins, halflings, lizard folk, and orcs. So it's not that elves are barbaric or anything, but they don't... they live in small and often nomadic communities outside of civilization. Okay. And then we have various advantages that each race gets. Well, okay. I already see an issue. Of course. Humans are the fucking best, right? +2 to an ability score. That's phenomenal. Compared to, like, lizard folk that can hold their breath for 15 minutes and get +2 to climbing tests. Yeah, I wonder which one I'm gonna pick. I mean, yeah, the orcs get +1 to hit and damage with melee weapons. Sure. But I could just take human and put +2 into strength. And that also, you know, that includes thrown weapons and anything else I might use strength for. Halflings get +1 armor class, +2 to stealth test, +2 to foraging test, but I could just take human and get +2 to dexterity and get all that and more. Goblin, +1 armor class, +2 to awareness tests. I mean, yeah, it's two separate things, but still, like, +2 to dex or +2 to wisdom. I don't know. That just seems too good. Maybe if it was +1 to an ability score, but maybe that wouldn't be... it's still pretty good, though. Right. Well, I guess I'm going to be human then, because it seems by far the best. And we're going to go +2 to strength. So I have 16 strength then. For a +2. Seems like a no-brainer to me. I don't know. I think Shadow Dark had that same issue, though, where humans are just kind of obviously the best choice. It's tough. It's tough to balance. But yeah, I mean, like, dwarves, +50 to encumbrance weight and stuff. It's like, okay, I guess that's cool. Humans are a great choice for a unique character concept. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're the best. But sometimes you don't want to min-max, and you might want to play an orc because you just want to play a fucking orc. So at least they have an advantage. But yeah, if you're the type to min-max, I can't imagine you're not going to pick a human pretty much every time. Every character has a class. Your class choice does more to define your character than almost any other factor. It greatly impacts how they relate to the game world. Every class has several common elements. Mundane or magical. Mundane character classes earn character points to improve every level. Magical character classes gain new spells and casting abilities with every level. Expertise. This is a task that defines your class in the eyes of other people. They are often ability or skill tests where your current level is added to the result. For example, a brigand receives a to-hit bonus equal to their level and deals double damage when backstabbing an opponent. You will notice that many expertise tests receive a bonus equal to your current level. This means that as you advance in level, you become stronger in your class's unique skill. Identify. Every class has something that they are particularly attuned to understanding in the world. There is a +2 bonus to knowledge or examination tests within that category. For example, the cultist gains a bonus to rolls made to identify the alignment of other characters. Weapon proficiencies. Every class has a different regimen of combat training. If you are not proficient in weapon, you get -3 to all your attacks. After attempting 20 attacks with an untrained weapon in combat versus a real opponent, you will gain proficiency with that weapon. Alternatively, you can train with a teacher for 2 weeks of game time. That's fun. Mundane characters gain character points over time. They begin play with 3 points. These can be spent at any time or saved for later use. A mundane character will gain another 3 character points when they gain a level. Character points can be spent in the following ways. Health bonus for 1 point to gain 1 permanent hit point. Proficiency for 1 point to gain proficiency in a weapon. Skill bonus. I don't know why you'd ever really use a point on proficiency, considering that's something you can achieve in-game. Skill bonus, 2 points to gain a +1 bonus to a skill of your choice. Saving throw bonus, 3 points, gain +1 bonus to all saving throws. And attack bonus, 3 points, gain a +1 bonus to hit and damage. Damn, that's pretty juicy. Alright, so here are the classes. Well, we'll go over we'll go over them one by one. Followers. Your character has talents and a reputation that attracts similar individuals. As you gain levels, you attract even more of these people. They may travel with you on your adventures or serve you in some other way. Some classes can even create followers. Okay. Magical traditions. Magic can be generally divided into 6 traditions. Conjuration, Primeval, Elementalism, Enchantment, Salvation, and Vexation. Every spell falls into 2 traditions. If you try to cast a spell wherein your intent does not match your magical tradition, it will fizzle to no effect. For example, if you are a Salvation practitioner and try to cast a spell that is Enchantment/Vexation, it will not work. Interesting. Interesting system here. There are 2 methods of spell casting, spontaneous and prepared. Spontaneous casters receive their spells from a divine patron, the deity that gives them magical power. They have a list of spells they can cast. They also have a daily limit to the number of times they can cast. They can add their wisdom modifier to this daily casting limit. Yeah, okay, that's normal. Prepared casters must have a spell book. After a restful 8-hour sleep, they can spend an hour meditating, preparing spells from their spell book. They have a daily limit to the number of spells that can be prepared. They can add their intelligence modifier to this limit. At the end of their preparations, the caster can pick an assortment of spells from their spellbook to prepare for that day. It's all pretty typical stuff. So the Conjurer, Elementalist, and Enchanter are all magical prepared classes. The Shaman, Witch, and Zealot are all spontaneous casters. Spontaneous casters are granted spells by their divine patron and cannot learn new spells through study. They can only learn new spells when they gain a level. Each time the player rolls 1d4 plus 1 and picks that many spells to acquire. Prepared casters can learn new spells by studying scrolls and spellbooks. They can copy these spell texts into their spellbook for later memorization. It is up to the character to find written versions of new spells in the game world. They will not be provided automatically by the judge upon gaining a level. Yes, and that's how Axe works, and that's how I run it when I run Tales of Argosa with Axe spells. You do not automatically get spells. Alright, the Brigand. Criminals that live in the dark, dangerous shadows beyond the reach of the law. Lawful brigands do exist. Expertise, they're practiced ambushers, and some are even outright murderers. They can backstab a humanoid opponent for massive damage and quick death. Any weapon can be used, even a ranged weapon, if the target is close enough and there is a clear shot. This is another thing that I do allow in Tales of Argosa. If you're within short range with a bow or something, you can backstab. It's harder to hide in the shadows with a polearm than a dagger. Be practical. A brigand that succeeds on a stealth test has concealment against all enemies that are present. A brigand that is attacking a target from the rear while they are distracted by combat, conversation, working on a project, etc. is also considered to have concealment, but only versus that enemy. Interesting. Most games do not allow backstabbing during combat, but this seems to indicate that that is a possibility. While in concealment, a brigand enjoys a hit bonus equal to their level. If they hit the enemy, their attack deals double damage. The target is also stunned during the next combat round and cannot take actions. Once the brigand reaches 7th level, a backstab victim must also make a Constitution saving throw or perish, regardless of damage dealt. A brigand in concealment due to a stealth test will retain their concealment after a successful kill via backstab. However, if the target survives the attack, it will break their concealment and they must make another stealth test to regain it. Interesting. Well, I feel like a brigand with a bow is pretty powerful then. Because you could just keep like moving around within concealment. Because you can regain concealment theoretically during combat. And then you just keep doing double damage and stun targets. Identify because they frequently acquire strange possessions. Brigands are familiar with the type and breadth of goods available in the marketplace. A brigand can attempt to assess the value of nearly anything, even highly unusual items like ancient figurines or rare jewelry. Now this is interesting because this would change how I'd run things. Because normally when I run like an old school game, I tell players the specific value of treasure that they find. I guess it doesn't really say that specifically. It says the type and breadth of goods available in the marketplace. Yeah, so I suppose... okay, no, I still would do that. I'd still tell them, like, if they find gold bracelets in a dungeon. I still tell them how much it's worth. This is more for being in the marketplace and assessing, yeah, the value of things that they find there. +2 to knowledge test to price goods. They get character points. They're proficient with clubs, crossbows, and daggers. Oh, okay. So that's a pretty limited list by default. I could see maybe then spending a point on a proficiency at level 1 or something if you really just like, I need to use like a longsword, or I want to use a longbow, or because it could be a little rough at level 1 to find a teacher and spend 2 weeks of game time to become proficient. Usually when you start a campaign level 1, you're thrown right into a dungeon or something. But in a big open hex scroll, the DM just plops you in a town or something with no impetus for anything. Maybe. Usually you're dead broke, though. Yeah, interesting. And I guess you could just use anything with a -3. What did it say? You have to do 20, like, turns of combat? Yeah, 20 attacks with an untrained weapon. Yeah, that would be a little iffy, but... oh, they get 100 extra gold coins at character creation. Never mind, they're not broke. They also get +2 to reaction rolls made with criminals and or barbarian humanoids when serving as a vanguard. We'll see about that later. They also get +2 to breakage tests made to escape bonds, and +4 to dexterity tests made to escape from manacles, specifically. A brigand can recruit and train bandits to work on their behalf. These are lightly trained thieves that can be used as criminal assistants. They will fight in combat by your side, or you can leave them somewhere to conduct banditry while you're out adventuring. At first level, a brigand can only attract a single bandit follower, level 1. So you're level 1 and you have a level 1 follower. That's pretty nice. They will start with a stealth bonus of +1, blah, blah, blah. A new bandit also comes with proficiency in one type of weapon, and they can use armor or shields, blah, blah, blah. If they're traveling with the brigand's party, bandits must be paid a salary of 5 gold pieces per week per point of stealth bonus, and have a morale of 6 plus your charisma modifier. Bandits can be separated from the party and left somewhere in the game world to conduct banditry. The brigand can give the bandit instructions on what area to plunder, but all decisions about daily operations are left in their hands. The judge will then make a stealth test for the bandit each week against a DC determined by the judge to represent the strength of law enforcement in the area. It'll be harder for your bandits to succeed in a heavily patrolled area. Failure will result in either capture or injury. Minor success yields a small amount of loot, and major successes can turn into surprising windfalls. If the bandit is too successful for too long without close supervision, he may abscond with the money. But they are still thieves and might have no problem stealing from you in the end. That is very fun, I gotta say. That is great. Conjurer. These are, you know, they conjure shit. Expertise, they can create a binding circle of runes and symbols to prevent magical creatures summoned by their magic spells from returning to their home plane. Circle can be constructed anywhere with a stable flat floor and no wind. Requires an hour work, 1 pound of fine gold dust, valued at 20 gold pieces per pound, per 5-foot radius of the circle. Thus, a 20-foot radius circle would require 4 pounds of gold dust. Over time, the dust will settle and fall out of alignment. Must really check. If they fail to do this, it will decay in 2d6 days and release the bound creature into the world. When a creature is summoned within the circle, the normal spell duration is ignored, and they remain in the mortal world indefinitely. While the creature is contained in the circle, it cannot have any physical or magical effect on the surrounding world or deal damage. A dominance test. They fail, the creature will become hostile to them. If they succeed, the creature will serve as a retainer for 1d6 days, at which time they must be freed or make another dominance test. You can also unsummon them. They can communicate. For powerful beings, this can include telepathic communication. These beings can call for their followers to free them from confinement. Be careful, you may find an army at your doorstep. It's fun. Identify. Spent years studying symbols, runes, and glyphs. Blah, blah, blah. You get +2 to knowledge tests for any kind of magical symbols, runes, and or glyphs. You're proficient in clubs, daggers, and quarterstaves. Cannot wear armor, shields, or helmets, even if you're strong enough. You get +2 to dominance skill. At level up, you can choose to forego adding a spell slot and raise your dominance skill by a point. First level spell selection. Choose 5 spells from the following list. Look at this list. Alarm, Animal Messenger, Beam of Light, Burning Hands, Dancing Lights, Disguise Self, Floating Disc, Grease, Hex, Hummingbird, Infravision, Light, Mage Hand, Magic Missile, Magic Mouth, Obscuring Mist, Passage, Prismatic Armor, Read Magic, Rebellious Tongue, Shield, Shockwave, Storage, Summon Elemental, Summon Mount, Unseen Servant, and Ventriloquism. Jeez. You can create pucks to serve as your eyes and ears in the world. A puck is a winged creature with an impish appearance that weighs around 25 pounds and stands roughly 2 feet tall. No combat skills, low morale, automatically check morale every round in combat. They can perform basic tasks, they can fly at the Conjurer's normal walking speed. They are excellent servants, ideal for maintaining your personal residence and are performing tasks that are often relegated to squires or apprentices. They also make excellent spies, lookouts, and couriers. Can also serve as magical assistants. They can be left behind for long durations to preserve the integrity of a binding circle. They can also use magic items, as if they were the Conjurer. First puck is free at character creation. They can communicate telepathically across any distance. The Conjurer can possess the puck through this link and gain complete control of its body. Conjurer can maintain possession for as long as they wish, but they will be drained of 1 hit point per hour, taken during the first minute of that hour. Unless until either they choose to withdraw or they drop to only 1 hit point remaining. If a puck dies, the Conjurer takes 1d4 damage. Interesting. Again, that's really just fun stuff, isn't it? I think that's great. Cultists, powerful warriors that receive their powers from a demigod that demands sacrifices and followers. Expertise, cultists are able to perform ritualistic sacrifices to capture the life force of their victims. This energy is stored in vials of blood called pawns, which can then be used for a variety of purposes. The sacrifice must be a healthy humanoid. They must also have over 50% of their max hit points, and they must have a different alignment from the cultist and their demigod. The sacrificial victim must be bound and placed upon an altar in an open area of at least 20 square feet. Incantations and prayers are offered for 1 turn as the cultist stands over the victim. Lawful cultists perform rituals that focus on benevolence, purification, protection, chaos, focus on liberation, victory over one's enemies, defeat of tyranny, neutral, stress, the restoration of balance. Onlookers of an opposing alignment will be extremely unsettled by the ritual. This is why cultists tend to build shrines in isolated locations. The process concludes when the victim's throat is cut. Life energy is infused into the escaping blood, which is then captured by the cultist in a flask or bottle. 1 pawn is created for every hit die possessed by the subject, should be labeled by the cultist. Anyone can drink a pawn to recover 1d6 hit points or heal 1 point of ability score damage. Jeez. If the drinker and the victim have the same race, double the effect. However, note that drinking blood will be abhorrent to most characters regardless of their alignment. That's one of those tough things that it just requires buy-in from the players of just like, no, I'm not going to drink blood. Whereas players that don't give a shit, you know, Min-Max, Grognar, or whatever, they're just like, fuck it, it's 1d6 hit points. I don't give a shit. If a character at full health with no ability score damage drinks a pawn, it will give them +2 bonus to hit and damage in combat for 3 turns. Damn. Pawns can be poured over a stone statue of the demigod to surrender the soul directly. This will grant the cultist a minor boon of +1 to all saving throws until their next rest/sleep, stacked to a max of +5. Each pawn remains potent for 1d6 +3 days. This roll is made by the judge and kept secret. That's a lot of bookkeeping, isn't it? If the sacrificial victim has a divine patron, they can make a wisdom test against DC 20 as they perish to call upon their patron for aid. If they succeed on this test, the pawn is corrupted and deals 1d6 damage if consumed. The corruption is kept secret from the player. More bookkeeping. Jesus. Yeah, I guess the labeling is pretty important then. Identify. +2 to examination test to determine the alignment of a humanoid subject through conversation. Because you want to sacrifice, you know, you have to sacrifice different alignments. You don't want to sacrifice lawful people. Or, you know, whatever. They get character points. They're not spellcasters. Proficient in daggers, swords, and whips. You can build a shrine to consult with your demigod. Minimum cost is 500 gold pieces. This assumes less than a day's walk to the nearest town, ready access to building materials. If the shrine is more isolated than that or requires unique materials that cannot be found locally, the price will increase. If the cultist wants to establish living quarters, wells for fresh water, or other amenities, then the price will increase. And you can attract disciples. Disciple has no combat skill and low morale. If traveling with the party, they'll prepare meals and assist with minor tasks and carry up to 25 pounds of equipment. Many cultists rely upon their disciples to hold or carry miscellaneous items, their backup weapons, torches, lanterns, and candles. They have to be paid a salary of 1 gold piece per week. Disciples can be separated from the party and left at a shrine to pray and maintain it for other worshippers. Religious conversion takes time. Every season, the judge will make a religious conversion roll for the disciple. Roll against DC 15 using the cultist level as a bonus. If successful, 1d4 commoners from nearby settlements will develop affection for your demigod and begin to make small sacrifices at your shrine. There is no mechanical benefit in-game for having religious followers flock to your demigod. However, political power is a very real thing. If you convert a large percentage of a settlement to your cult, you will be able to use that influence to make important decisions for your people. Just be prepared for pushback. Alright. Interesting. That's an interesting class, because it's... I mean, it's mostly just like a fighter that can use swords. But you get disciples, I guess, and the big thing is the pawn. I mean, this is like the main mechanic of the cultists. So you're gonna be fucking sacrificing people. You don't have to sacrifice at a shrine. They have to be bound and placed on an altar in an open area of at least 20 square feet. Yeah, basically just like if you're fighting orcs, like just, okay, we gotta capture every orc. Just capture them all so we can sacrifice them and just get this collection of pawns. But the pawns only last 1d6 plus 3 days. Which is not terribly short, but depending on what you're like, okay, it's like, okay, we finished here, now we gotta travel over to, you know, this hex over here. That could take time. Depends on the scale, I suppose, you're playing in. But still. But then, yeah, it's the question of this line here. Drinking blood will be abhorrent to most characters. It depends on how a DM enforces that. How willing the players are to not give a shit about that. It's hard to say. Alright, Elementalist. Experimental magicians that study magic in its most pure form, elemental energy. Earth, wind, fire, ice, lightning, plant, water, shadow. Boy, oh boy. Expertise. They get an energy blast for 1d4 damage at any time. Treat this as a ranged touch attack out to a range of 20 feet. Okay, so you have a cantrip. You always have an elemental blast of 1d4 damage. I mean, it's not an auto hit or anything, and that's not a supreme amount of damage considering that... Well, I guess most creatures... Like a level 1 creature is going to have 1d6 hit points, right? So that averages out to like 3.5. So yeah, on average, you're probably not killing it much with that, but it's nice to have. You get +2 to examination test to determine an active effect from a magical spell, but not magic items. Interesting. That's pretty situational. You're proficient with clubs, daggers, and swords, but you can't wear armor, shields, or helmets. You get a bunch of spell choices. Good lord. A lot of those are pretty similar to the Conjurer, but yeah, you get stuff like Beam of Light, Burning Hands, Dragon's Breath, Magic Missile, Icy Touch. You actually get Sanctuary as an option, which is interesting. An elementalist can create elemental guardians to serve as their allies in battle. Look very similar to a muscular humanoid or golem. Newly created guardian is roughly 2 feet tall and fairly weak. Should be treated as a first level character. It has weak combat ability. Very loyal, will follow almost any instruction. When you gain a level, you can choose to either enhance an existing guardian or create a new one. Enhancement allows you to add a hit die, and your choice of either dealing additional 1d4 damage or gaining a 1-point improvement in armor class. They will gain approximately 2 feet in height each time they're enhanced. Thus, by the time you're 5th level, you could potentially have an intimidating 10-foot tall guardian at your side. If constructed from an elemental form that contains matter, earth, ice, plant, or water, the guardian can hold up to 1 pound in each hand or up to 3 pounds if using both hands. Has very poor ability scores, cannot operate any devices or open doors, cabinets, etc. If your guardian is fluid or lacks matter, fire, lightning, water, or shadow, then it can move through narrow cracks and under doors with ease. However, its lack of hard matter prevents it from lifting or pushing objects. Guardian gets +5 stealth bonus to hide within its component element. Combined with a -3 ability score bonuses is a net +2 to the roll. I see, yeah, okay. Shadow Elemental can hide in the dark very effectively. I don't know about very effectively. A +2 doesn't seem that big, but okay. Guardian will accept your commands both verbally or telepathically. They cannot communicate back to you in any meaningful way. They simply lack the intelligence to serve as a scout or servant creature. Yeah, in comparison to the Puck. So these are very different sort of followers. You can create a new Guardian at your next level. Don't throw them away carelessly in battle. Only put your Guardian in harm's way if truly necessary for your own survival. They will become uncontrollable if they move more than 100 yards away from their master. Control cannot be restored even if the Elementalist moves back within the 100-yard radius. Be extra careful anytime you use teleportation or similar magic across vast distances. Interesting. A lot of limitations to these guys. And if we look at the level 1 stats, they have 2d6 hit points, 12 AC, and they have a touch attack for 1 damage. Yeah, so at level 1, they are not spectacular. But at level 2, they have another 1d6 hit points, and they'll do 1d4 plus 1 damage, which still is not great, but it's a hell of a lot better. Okay, so I think, yeah, it's sort of like the mage itself, right? Like a mage in old school gaming is usually not very impressive at all at level 1. But by level 6 or something, like, yeah, they're fucking pretty terrifying. So at level 5, if you have a 10-foot tall guardian that's gained 46 hit points and can do, like, I don't know, 4d4 damage, it's pretty solid. Enchanter. Your tradition is focused on mind-affecting magic, the manipulation of individuals, techniques used to lock magical energy inside of physical objects such as wands. Their expertise. If a humanoid subject is isolated and engaged in conversation with the enchanter, they can become mesmerized. The subject must be alone and giving their entire attention to the enchanter. Enchanter must succeed on a dominance test against the DC equal to the target's charisma. While mesmerized, the subject will answer almost any information requested by the enchanter. If they want to keep a secret, they must make a charisma saving throw versus DC 15. Success will end the mesmerizing effect. While mesmerized, the target will respond to the enchanter's suggestions as if magically compelled. However, they will not take actions that will obviously harm themselves. The target remembers everything that occurs while they are mesmerized. Okay, that is important to note. The presence of another person will break the mesmerizing effect, as well as any physical contact, loud sounds, or dialogue directed at the subject. This includes everyone, so send your own allies away to avoid accidentally ending the effect. Mesmerizing is a draining action for the enchanter, consumes either a single hit point or removes a prepared spell from memory. And it must be paid per turn, 10 minutes. Still, it's a pretty powerful thing to just always have access to at any time. That is pretty fun. I do like that a lot. For solo playing, I don't think it would come up too much. But if I was playing in a campaign with a DM, yeah, I would get up to some shenanigans with that. All right, they get a +2 to examination test to identify magic items. It's great. They are proficient in daggers, quarterstaves, and swords. Cannot wear armor, shields, or helmets. They get to pick 5 spells from this fun list. And they can teach magic to neophytes. These are people with minor magical talents who wish to become a spellcaster. Proficient with a quarterstaff, refuse to wear armor. They have low morale. You can teach them 1 spell that is in your spellbook. If you choose to bring a neophyte into combat, they will only cast spells and defend themselves. They are not interested in dying on your behalf. They can memorize and cast up to 2 spells per day. Once their spells are exhausted, they will withdraw to the rear. So at first level, you get a single neophyte. And they're already fully trained. When recruiting a neophyte, you must spend 6 weeks training them to cast their first spell. This requires your focus and attention for at least 3 to 4 hours per day. Training can be conducted while traveling overland, but not in a dungeon. Okay, well that helps. A neophyte does not necessarily have a desire for adventure. You can leave them behind to defend your property, maintain lab equipment, and prepare magical materials for use in magic item construction. They can be trusted to serve as an envoy or courier on your behalf. Don't send them through a thick monster-infested forest and expect them to return. When you gain a level, any neophyte that has been in your service for the majority of the previous level can be trained in an additional first-level spell. Once they have learned 5 first-level spells, the neophyte will leave your service to study on their own. If treated well, even a neophyte that has left your service should still have a positive affection for you. They may prove to be a useful contact in whatever area they choose to settle down on their own. Alright, well that's pretty fun, and yeah, having an extra dude that casts 2 spells per day. I mean, I imagine he's not great at casting spells, but I think... Didn't it say most spell casting is based around a saving throw, rather than like a spell casting check? Anyways. So yeah, like having a neophyte at level 1 that knows sleep is essentially pretty powerful, right? Knave. Knaves are the spies, thieves, conmen, and information brokers to the nobility. There are many things that a noble might want to accomplish without drawing any attention to themselves. So this is our thief. Sort of. They're like political thieves. Spies, really. Yeah, I guess they're more of a spy. Knaves are able to create and maintain false identities. At first level and every 2 levels thereafter, the knave can create 1 separate and false identity in addition to their true self. This new identity has its own name and backstory, but the player may wish to add further embellishment. For example, they might add an unusual profession to the backstory so they can infiltrate a guild of that type. They might claim a noble title, real or imaginary, wear a particular style of dress, have a certain accent, grow their hair/beard in a certain fashion, favorite food or drink, likes, dislikes, and so on. Knaves have spent time among all types of people and can fake their station both up and down. They fit in just as well among farmers as they do among high society. They have mastery of etiquette, know which fork to use and what to say at appropriate times for the person they're pretending to be. A knave can ride into town as the Baron of Salino, work his way into the ignorant Duke's confidence, charm his daughter, and ride out of town with her sitting beside him in the saddle. When the Duke follows up, he discovers that the real Baron of Salino is a teenager waiting to come of age. As he turns around and screams in frustration, he notices the ransom note on his bedside table. Oh, so slick. They get +2 to examination tests to recognize a voice heard in conversation or determine what language is being spoken if you don't know it. You get character points. You're proficient in daggers, flails, and swords. Flails, that's interesting. They get a +2 to reaction rolls made with civilians and or nobles in a settlement when serving as a vanguard. They get +2 to maximum retainers. They're adept at following unsuspecting targets. They get +2 to stealth tests in constructed environments, urban, interior, underground, etc. and they start with 100 extra gold coin. A knave can recruit and train spies. These are special clandestine agents that can acquire information that people are trying to keep hidden from the public eye. A spy starts with a +2 bonus to both examination and stealth. They must be paid 3 gold pieces per week. Blah, blah, blah. You start with 1 spy. When you gain a level, you choose to either recruit a new spy or improve an existing one. +1 bonus to both of their skills and raise their salary by 1 gold piece per week. Spies can be fired at any time. They may also leave. Blah, blah, blah. Spies will not travel with the knave or engage in combat on their behalf. They should be sent to a location to acquire information on your behalf. This could be a nearby town, city, mining colony, bandit camp, fortress, or any other settlement or organization. It could just as easily be a crossroads, a hilltop, a cliff overlooking the harbor, or similar vantage point to observe it. A successful spy will feed information back until you tell them to withdraw. Letters will either be placed at drop locations for pickup or delivered by courier if you have the coin to pay for distant communiques. Spies are not thieves, but they may steal documents for you if that is part of their mission. It is also important to remember that they are not chameleons. They cannot operate in areas where their racial group is viewed with suspicion or disdain without being noticed. They are stealthy but not invisible. Huh. Okay, well, this is very much like big picture domain level play sort of stuff. Like, if you're going to be playing in a campaign of just dungeon crawling, this is going to have very little. The knave is probably not going to be a class that anyone's going to pick, you know? But if you're playing like a hex crawl sandbox kind of thing, which you should be, I mean, let's be honest, especially, yeah, if you're playing this game, the idea is probably more towards a hex crawl sandbox. This has a lot of potential for a lot of different things. Being able to put together false identities has a lot of social play value. Having spies you can send around to different settlements to do all sorts of different things. I mean, yeah, it's And it's not necessarily like you know, you could play in a campaign that's a little bit more structured or has a little, like, I'm thinking of like the Evils of Ilmire, right? You have, you know, the town that's out in the swamp and everything that's kind of getting taken over by this cult. Having spies that can kind of infiltrate the cult and send back information to you with dead drops and things like that, like that's fun for the DM, that's fun for the players, and it has a lot of value. So, yeah, unless you're playing a very specific dungeon crawling focused campaign and you don't care about anything else, I think a knave does have quite a bit of value. And it's definitely a class that I would maybe lean towards playing if I didn't just love magic and just can't get enough magic. But if I was like playing a random class and I ended up with a knave, I would not be too upset. Ranger. It's one of them rangers. Ranger is an expert in tracking. They can track almost anything through the wilderness. So they get +4 to examination tests to locate tracks in the wilderness. They can then follow the tracks to their conclusion without additional rolls. And as soon as they locate the quarry, we get a +4 bonus to stealth test to approach undetected. If a monster or animal lair is discovered, you get a +4 bonus to examination test to determine what sort of creature lives there. +4 bonus to examination test to determine what kind of creature left behind a particular piece of evidence, such as gnawed bones, spore, urine, scratches, etc. Okay, very wilderness tracking focus there. Everything you'd want. They also get a +2 to examination test to identify plants. They get character points. They're proficient with axes, bows, and spears. And they get more bonuses. They get +2 to foraging test to find food and water in the wild. If serving as a vanguard, the party gets +4 to direction test to avoid getting lost, and moves an extra 2 miles per day over land. And camping at night, they can find the best possible location. All sentries posted that night will gain a +2 bonus to awareness test to spot danger. You can also recruit and train scouts. They will serve as your eyes and ears in the wilderness. They come with a bow proficiency. They can wear armor if their strength supports it. They will fight in combat, but they'll avoid melee. +1 bonus to stealth. You're responsible for equipping and healing your scouts. Subsequent scouts have to be recruited and trained individually. This process takes at least 3 months of service at your side. However, a scout does not necessarily have a desire for adventure. They can be trusted to serve as an envoy or courier on your behalf. 5 gold per week. When you gain a level, any scout spending your service from the majority will gain +1 to stealth, 1 hit die, +1 to hit bonus with their bow, raise their salary by 5 gold pieces. Still, pretty handy. Yeah, that's pretty handy. In an old school game like this, having just a bunch of bowmen behind you in a battle is pretty handy. If you're encamped in a location for a period of time, you can send a scout into a neighboring hex to survey it and report back. This takes about a week. I'm curious to see what his default hex size is. When they return, they'll bring a crude map of the areas that they explored, showing the location of important sites, and they can provide a general idea of the inhabitants in the hex. If the scout encounters a serious challenge while carrying out the survey, the judge will make the appropriate die rolls, use the results to inform the final outcome. In dire cases, you may never hear from them again. If they survey a thick forest with many monsters, the judge might make a stealth test versus the DC that represents the danger. Well, yeah, if you're going to be doing any sort of wilderness campaign or spending a decent amount of time in the wilderness, a ranger is really quite indispensable. Savage. All right. During the first round of combat, plus the surprise round if the savage is not surprised, they enjoy the following advantages. They'll scream at their opponents and shout out curses. Any morale checks made by the enemy at the start of combat suffer a -2 penalty to reflect this intimidation. How often do you roll morale checks at the start of combat? I guess that can happen. A savage can double their strength bonus to hit and damage at this time. That's pretty significant. A savage can add 10 feet to their combat speed at this time to reflect their eagerness for battle. This works only during that initial clash of arms. They get an automatic recognition of known sense. Doesn't everybody have that? They get a +2 to examination test to analyze unknown sense. They get character points. They're proficient with axes, maces, and spears. They get a +4 to breakage tests on non-magical objects. That's pretty nice. They get a +1 to awareness tests before combat. +2 to climbing tests to move up difficult surfaces. They can speak fluently in 1 additional language than would normally be allowed. They are not literate in this language, they can only speak it. Okay. And they get thralls. So these are captured slaves of your enemies. Terms of a thrall surrender can include a wide array of obligations, but are subject to final approval by the judge. In general, service for more than a year is considered excessive. At first level, you've not captured any thralls, but have the potential to manage one if you can effect a capture. It takes great talent to keep an eye on your slaves and make sure they're living up to their part of the bargain. You can control an additional thrall every other level to reflect your growing competency in managing their activities. For obvious reasons, thralls cannot be sent away from the party on missions. They cannot be trusted to stand by their word. Abusing thralls is personally dishonorable. Any non-player character of equal or lesser hit die can be turned into a thrall. This is essentially an unpaid retainer. They may or may not have combat training, magic ability, or other skills. The thrall may or may not be able to keep their equipment as part of their surrender. That must all be negotiated with the judge at the time of capture. They will always retain their current attributes, hit points, and experience level if applicable. You are responsible for providing everything they need while they're in your service. Consider the position of a gnoll that is equipped with over 500 gold pieces worth of equipment. Their allies are dead. They are the last holdout against a superior foe. They can continue to live, maybe keep their equipment in exchange for a single year of service. It is fair in a way. Note that some races and cultures will not recognize your contract with the thrall as legitimate. They may seek to free your slave from what they see as unjust bondage. You are not guaranteed the right to travel through such regions without someone attempting to liberate your captive. You must always be prepared to defend your rights. I cannot imagine this feature being in, like, 5th edition D&D. you know? But it is pretty awesome. I think Grug is probably going to be a savage. I think all signs are pointing to that. Okay. Shaman. So this is a divine caster. A spontaneous caster. Primeval tradition. They can enter into a trance state to travel into the ethereal plane. To enter a trance, the shaman must burn at least 25 gold pieces per character level worth of incense and special materials. Spend 10 minutes chanting and focusing, after which time their body falls limp, and their soul is projected into the ethereal realm as per the spell ethereal form. You can do this once per day. Okay. They're floating through a dark, nightmarish world. Visibility is poor. They can perform one of the following tasks. Consult a spirit guide while making a knowledge test. If the judge feels the spirit would have useful information, they can provide it to the player. Pick a point in the past or future. The ethereal clouds will reform around the shaman to show them this moment in time. They will be able to hear what is being discussed, but it may be garbled or sound like they're underwater. After a turn, the vision will fade and they will return. Interesting. That's potentially... There's no bigger, like, fuck you to a DM than trying to, like, look into the future at a location. And the DM's just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it's really a big strain on the improvisation, I think. Direct their spirit guides to leave the immediate area and observe nearby locations. Guides are not very intelligent. Their vision is poor when looking through the ether, but they can discover some basic information, such as detecting the presence of hostile creatures or landscape features. Or you can commune with a spirit guide to get +2 bonus on all saving throws for the next day. Okay, that's all fun. You get +2 to examination tests to determine cause and time of death. You're proficient in clubs, quarterstaves, and slings. Cannot wear armor, shields, or helmets. You choose 3 spells from this list. Okay, including Curative Touch. Very good. You attract spirit guides. These are the spiritual forms of totemic animals that are important in your culture. Most are large mammals. Elk, deer, moose, great cats, bears, wolves, etc. Blah, blah, blah. When a shaman uses their trance ability to project the ethereal plane, they take a risk that hostile forces on that plane will use that opportunity to attack them. Spirit guides are essential to protecting yourself while in a trance. Spirit guides behave like normal animals of their type, just on the ethereal plane. They can only attack and damage natives to the ethereal plane or magical creatures, including incorporeal undead that are attacking you in the mortal realm. Okay. Nice protection against ghosts and stuff. They cannot communicate with you directly unless you're on the ethereal plane. However, they will occasionally provide guidance in the form of omens. For example, a wolf spirit guide might leave wolf tracks in the snow for you to follow. Alternatively, a bear spirit guide might leave deep claw marks on trees. So they start with 1 hit die. Well, I guess they don't ever really improve. Yeah, 1 hit die, 12 AC, 1d6 plus 1 damage. Plus 1 ability modifiers. And again, they can only attack ethereal shit or magical creatures. Veteran. Retired soldiers with experience leading levied fighting men in combat. They make an excellent choice for Vanguard. We're hearing a lot about Vanguard. Veteran is an excellent choice for a new player, as they have robust combat abilities and a simple playstyle. Veteran is a fighter and a killer. Okay, so they can command anyone allied to them in battle to grant bonuses to their combat actions. The veteran always rolls initiative for his side and enjoys a +1 bonus to that roll. That is pretty handy. Any character fighting alongside the veteran, standing in a side flanking space on the grid, gains a +1 bonus to hit and damage. Wow, a specific, deliberate mention of a grid here. That is very uncommon in an OSR game, but, I mean, again, Axe uses a grid. So yeah, if you're next to the veteran, you get +1 to hit and damage. If you're concealed behind the veteran, stand in a rear flanking space on the grid, you get a +1 bonus to armor class and morale. Cool. You get +2 knowledge test to recognize heraldry. Probably the least useful of any identify skill. They get character points. They're proficient with all melee weapons and crossbows, all armor and shields, even if their strength is not high enough to justify it. Good lord. They start with 200 extra gold. This is especially useful for buying heavier starting armor. And they get +2 to leadership test to restore morale. And they get to recruit and train soldiers, fighting men that have committed to your goals. They will serve at your side in combat. They start with 2 weapon proficiencies of your choice, can wear armor if their strength supports it. They have excellent morale. You are responsible for equipping and healing your soldiers. At first level, you've only recruited a single soldier to your service. You get an additional one every other level. They're already trained and their pay reflects this. They have to be paid a base of 10 gold per week. That adds up. It's not too bad. When you gain a level, any soldier that's been in your service for the majority of the previous level will gain a hit die and a +1 to hit bonus. And increase salary by 5 gold per week. A soldier does not need to serve at your side. They can be trusted to defend locations, supervise prisoners, guard other NPCs, defend pack animals while you're in the dungeon, and so on. They can be trusted to serve as an envoy or courier on your behalf, provided they are traveling through a safe area of the world map. Damn. Okay, yeah, so the veteran is a very solid class. I would imagine most groups are going to want a veteran in there. Witch. They are a spontaneous caster. So they actually start with 4 spells. That's pretty good. Level 1. Well, they can cast 4 spells per day. Witches are able to place curses upon their humanoid enemies. This has a chance of severely injuring or killing the target, but requires forethought and planning. To initiate it, the witch needs a poppet. This is a physical item that has been touched by the target of the curse within the past month. Could be a bit of their clothing, recently used utensil, or a favorite trinket. The witch generally chooses a small item that will not be missed. Once they have a poppet in hand, the witch must spend an entire day performing a complex magical ritual. Valued at 5d6 gold pieces per hit dice of target. After the ritual, the witch makes a dominance test to inflict the curse. If successful, the subject is inflicted with a disease. Random type and severity. If the witch has a poppet in their possession, the target's a -2 penalty to all saving throws against magic cast by the witch. If multiple people have touched the selected poppet in the past month, the curse will affect one of them randomly. The witch must be very cautious to choose a poppet that only the intended target has touched recently. Oh, that is tricky then, because if you're trying to get like the king or something and you grab like some of his clothing, that's probably touched by quite a lot of people in a month. So yeah, it would have to be something very specific to him that he wouldn't miss. That's tricky. It's very tricky. But, it should be tricky to disease a king. You get +2 to examination test to identify sickness, disease, active poison effects, and magical ailments. Proficient in clubs, daggers, and whips. Cannot wear armor, shields, and helmets. +2 to dominance skill. You get 3 spells from this list. Okay. And you can create Spriggans to annoy and terrorize your enemies. Weighs around 20 pounds, stand roughly 2 feet tall, large bulbous head that looks like it belongs to an old man with oversized wrinkled hands, while the body is weak and calloused. They have no combat skills, low morale. They'll avoid combat if at all possible. They can perform basic tasks, speak one language of the witch's choice, hold up to 2 pounds in each hand. They will not travel with you on campaign. They have terrible dispositions. They aggravate and annoy every NPC they come into contact with. Their purpose is to harass and sabotage. The witch can command a Spriggan to either defend a location or to terrorize a target. They will then throw themselves into their task with vigor and enthusiasm. On defense, the Spriggan will patrol the area. Before intruders can get close, the Spriggan will begin to attack them. They will trigger sudden storms to slow down their enemies. They will sicken and panic livestock or pack animals that are part of the group. They will break wagon wheels, snap saddle straps, and otherwise cause havoc. They will do everything they can to remain out of sight during this activity. Eventually, the area around the defensive point will be seen by the locals as cursed and dangerous. Fewer travelers will pass through. On attack, the Spriggan will seek out the target and find ways to harass and annoy them. They can weaken and cause structures to collapse. They can bring about severe storms that cause a variety of damage. They will steal crops right before they ripen and feed them to vermin to help their numbers grow. They will break fragile objects that are useful to the target. In general, they will wage a war of annoyance on victims. They're incapable of harming the individuals that they are engaging with directly. Goes against their moral code. If they encounter a powerful enemy, more hit dice than your character level, the Spriggan will be much more cautious and correspondingly less effective. If the target makes a serious attempt to kill the Spriggan, the judge can allow them to make combat rolls. Dealing damage to the Spriggan causes it to disappear into the ethereal plane for 2 weeks for regeneration. Against a weak enemy, the Spriggan will increase their efforts, as there's no serious chance of reprisal. Such a target may flee a significant distance trying to escape the Spriggan's wrath. You get one every other level. Each takes 3 days of ritual, consume 500 gold pieces worth of magic materials. Okay, so yeah, it's similar to like the spies and stuff of you're doing domain play and things like that. You're doing bigger picture stuff. But yeah, like again, to use Evils of Ilmire as an example, at the start there, near the town, there's like a bandit camp. It's like this sort of little fortified area taken over by bandits that are in service to the cult. You want to take that over. Having a Spriggan go in for like a week or two and just cause havoc there could really like weaken the area pretty significantly in one way or another. It could maybe cause some of the bandits to leave. It could create some structural instabilities like in the walls or something that you could exploit. There's all sorts of things that it could do. Very, very fun stuff. And then if you didn't want anyone to come back to there after you take it over, you could just have the Spriggan defend it, so that if anyone's going to try to approach, they get kind of fucked with and it becomes known as like a cursed area to keep it safe for yourself. I don't know, all sorts of stuff you can do with that. It's not as obviously clear-cut, basic, new player friendly as the soldiers from the veteran, but yeah, it definitely has potential. Lastly, we have the Zealot. So this is our sort of cleric or paladin. A Zealot can offer redemption to the dying. A redemption ritual can be performed on a humanoid that has died either as a result of failing a saving throw or being reduced below 0 hit points. Anyone whose body has been completely destroyed cannot be saved. The ritual takes a full turn to perform and it must be initiated within an hour of the actual moment of death. The subject must accept the Zealot's deity as their divine patron and make a Constitution saving throw against DC 10. If successful, they are restored to 1 hit point. This declaration of divine loyalty can only be made once per lifetime. The subject must give up a piece of their life energy to their new patron. The subject takes 1 point of ability score damage to 3 different ability scores, the Zealot's choice. If the fallen is a player character, they cannot communicate which ability scores they would prefer to see reduced, nor should the Zealot be allowed to see their ability scores while making this decision. Interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. I think most knowledgeable players would have a somewhat clear understanding of what would be less important to the person. But yeah, I mean, you might drop someone below like a modifier threshold that they didn't want to drop below, or, you know, all sorts of stuff. Interesting. If the Zealot uses redemption to save an NPC and later attempts to hire the subject as a retainer, they get a +2 bonus to the hiring roll. That's all. You save their life. If the Zealot's deity is displeased with the subject for actions past or present, they may choose to reject them and deny the redemption. It's a pretty shitty thing for a DM to do, I suppose. But yeah, there you go. You can bring people back from the dead as a standard thing. It can only happen once for each person, but still. It's pretty nice. You get a +2 to examination test to analyze the health of a hostile humanoid. If successful, the target's hit point total is revealed. Very nice. Proficient in flails, maces, warhammers. Cannot wear armor, shield, or helmets. Okay, forget what I said about a paladin. This is really more just like a holy mage. You get 3 spells from the following list. You can build a temple to support your deity. Minimum cost is 1,500 gold pieces. That doesn't include living quarters, wells, housing, or other amenities. You can recruit curates to your service. This is a person who serves a supporting role within your congregation. They have no real combat skills and will avoid combat when possible. They can heal 1 hit point of damage per day by laying on hands. They have to be paid 1 gold per week. They make far better providers of religious service. They can be trusted to serve as an envoy or courier on your behalf, provided they are traveling through a safe area of the world map. Curates can be separated from the party and left at a temple to pray and maintain it for other worshippers. If instructed to do so, they will also visit settlements in the area and preach the word of their deity. So, religious conversion. If 2 different religions clash over believers in a city, your curates may be threatened or killed. You may want to finance guards or even get personally involved if politics grow toxic. Your temples will serve as a place of rest and healing. While you're on temple grounds, you can cast 1 additional spell per day per curate that manages the temple. All healing spells that you cast on temple grounds restore an additional hit point per curate. Okay. It can be beneficial to concentrate your curates in one location to create a powerful religious center. It can also be beneficial to spread them out to extend your reach and create sanctuaries, where your party can rest and recover between adventures. Very interesting. Okay. Well, a lot to go over. Very interesting selection of classes, though. And you can see a lot of stuff not based around just combat and fighting. And there's a lot of big picture stuff. For Grug here, he's going to be a savage. So he's proficient in axes, maces, spears. He gets interesting. Yeah, it's not a big section for expertise. I guess that would be class feature. Okay. Yeah, something like that. We also get automatic recognition of known sense, +2 to exam tests to analyze unknown sense. Awesome. We had +4 on breakage on non-magical objects. So, yeah, technically it's not +4 to all breakage tests. So technically that could go under class features. Awareness tests before combat. +2 climbing on difficult surfaces. And we get 1 additional language. I'm gonna go with Goblin just for fun. Okay. That's mostly it. I mean, I think we got to go back to like the checklist because now we're getting into money, I think. Money and equipment. Let's go back to the checklist. Yeah, did that. Alright, choose how to spend your first level character points. Seems hard not to spend it on hit points. Right? So I might just spend all 3 on hit points. We get 1d6 plus 1 hit points. So I got 3. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and spend all 3 points. I think we can... yeah, he doesn't have great bookmarks here. I think we can use all all armor. Yeah. Use all armor and shield and stuff. So let's go down to money and equipment then. Every character begins play with 5d6 times 10 gold pieces, which results in an average outcome of 175. $17. Yeah, it's 170. That'll do it. $170 gold pieces. This sum represents the total accumulated property of someone with your circumstances. Many of the items you purchased were really bought years ago. Okay, I like that it includes like advice of what to buy. I definitely think new players struggle with that a bit. This also requires new players to actually read a fucking rulebook, though. Okay, so yeah, standard 10-10-10 system. 1 gold is 10 silver, and 1 silver is 10 copper. 1 platinum is 10 gold. It also includes an electrum, which is kind of annoying. And so yeah, we are dealing with weights. So 20 gold is 1 pound. 10 platinum is 1 pound. It's very heavy. 50 silver is 1 pound. 50 copper is 1 pound. It's, you know, that decision is very divisive, I think, you know. Some people really like having the nitty-gritty specificity of weight and tracking weight and encumbrance and everything, and I think a lot of people don't. So that alone is a decision that is going to kind of alienate this game for some people. Not that most people are ever going to even know this game exists. I didn't know about it until today, so, you know, and I'm certainly involved well enough with the OSR. But yeah, it's a divisive thing to do. Yeah, okay. Alright, so here is our weapon list. A fairly... You know, it's decent. Above average, maybe, slightly. I think it's slightly more robust than Shadow Dark's list. So the damages range from D4 to D10. There are no D12 weapons from the looks of it. They all have weights ranging from 1 to 5 pounds. And values, standard longsword is going to cost you 120 gold. That is high. That's pretty damn high. What did it cost in DCC? $10. Yeah, fucking 10. And 10 is what I would say is probably fairly common for a value. So it's interesting. Let me... do I have... Let me just pull up the actual book real quick. So a sword, which is a long sword, yeah, 10. That seems really normal. I don't know how he ended up with 120 gold piece cost. Unless that says something very specific about his setting or something. I don't know. Its high cost and combat utility also make it a symbol of noble status. Okay, yeah, so he's going for that sort of angle. Where adventurers are not, like, that common. Most people are not buying long swords. Because honestly, a spear is pretty damn good. You know? Like, much like DCC, if you look at the longsword, it's a D8 damage, 3 pounds. The spear is D8 damage, 2 pounds, and can be thrown. And is, you know, a fucking spear. I don't know if he gives it like a second rank ability or not. Classic weapon, can be used to attack someone up to 10 feet away. Also has great thrusting power and can make aimed attacks as if it were a ranged weapon. And when used against a mounted opponent, spear grants a +2 bonus to hidden damage. Oh, but it is a two-handed weapon. Okay, well then that is a factor, isn't it? Okay. I don't know why you wouldn't have a two-handed thing, like even an asterisk or something on this list, so you can tell. But okay, he's counting spears as two-handed. The trident, I imagine, is the one-handed version. But no, it is not a second rank weapon. It just has, if you crit, their weapon becomes entangled with the trident and twisted out of their hands. Okay. So then the longsword does occupy a position, because I don't know if anything is going to have... Okay, well no, the battle axe is 1d8. I mean, it also depends on your proficiencies, of course, but yeah, the battle axe is 1d8, can also be thrown a short distance, and only costs 20 gold. The longsword has the benefit of being able to make aimed attacks, though, which I don't know specifically how good that is or anything, but yeah, okay. A flail is also D8, but proficiency with that didn't seem too common. Okay. The Morning Star is D8. Essentially a mace with a spiked head. Anyone proficient in maces can use a Morning Star. Okay. So, I don't know. We'll have to look when we get to the bestiary and stuff if different damage types make any difference or not, like against skeletons or something. But there are definitely options then for alternatives to the longsword. I have never seen a longsword cost that much. Interesting. Okay, well, we want a weapon of some kind. Probably a couple weapons. We can use axes, maces, and spears. So I imagine... we could use a great axe, I suppose, for 50 gold, but I think probably we want survivability a bit more. So we're just going to go with a battle axe. I mean, I do think a spear is good, but I also imagine Grug's going to be kind of on the front line, so it is what it is. I think he might also go for some hand axes. Javelins can be thrown pretty fucking far. Way less and cost way less. Yeah, javelins. We'll buy 5 of them for 5 pounds. This is 4 pounds. This is going to be 1 times 5. Okay, so we spent 30 gold so far, down to 140. I think it's probably good for weaponry, unless I also want to buy a mace for 15, but yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Okay. And I don't think the... Yeah, the battle axe is... Yeah, javelin is 1d6. Range equals 5 times strength. Armor. So we have light, medium, heavy, and of course clothing. So different strength requirements, different armor class bonuses, penalty to stealth tests specifically, no other types of checks. Okay. It all weighs quite a lot. Jesus. And it's pretty expensive. Full plate weighs 75 pounds and costs 1,500 gold pieces. That's not cheap. I have 140 gold, so we're probably looking at like leather armor, unfortunately. Even if I bought no weapons, we still couldn't afford much else. So yeah, we're gonna go with leather armor. We'll call it hide armor, won't we? Or savage. We're also gonna buy a helmet. That's handy. And we're gonna buy a round shield, which gives +2 more armor class. So +1 AC for the hide armor. The helmet gives +3 to saving throws to avoid explosions, falling objects, so on and so forth. And the round shield is +2 AC. Better than my hide armor. Penalty... So I'll just have -1 to stealth. Weight in pounds of the hide armor is 10. Helmet is 3. And the round shield is 8. I don't really have to write all this information in, but I will. Alright, so it's 56, 64 gold I spent there. Which puts us at 76. Yeah. Transportation, yeah, we can't really afford almost anything. I could buy a donkey if I really wanted to, but we'll be ourselves here. Backpacks. These pre-packed backpacks are provided to make this part of character creation easier for those who don't want to spend time poring over equipment lists. Each pack contains items that fit within a single backpack. Interesting. Took a little bit out of Axe here for this, for like the pre-packaged template kind of stuff. Backpacks are kind of pricey. You're talking about 70. Yeah, I could maybe buy the... Well, I guess the Wanderer is 14 gold. It's pretty cheap. Gives you most of the stuff you'd care about. Like, the Legionnaire includes a fucking tent, as an example, and manacles, which you probably don't really need. Yeah, it depends, I suppose. Okay, adventuring gear. Wow. Alright, that is quite the extensive list of adventuring gear. Very, very rare, I will say, to actually see a separation between 50 feet of rope and like 10 feet of rope. It also seems a little unnecessary because it's like, sure, if I want to buy 10 feet of rope, I could just divide this by 5. You know, like, I don't know if that really needs to be displayed. That's why it probably doesn't normally get displayed. But yeah, this is a very extensive list. And then it's got descriptions for every single thing. So a backpack can carry up to 40 pounds of weight and can be dropped at any time to lighten your load. You can only do that if you specify in your character sheet what is going into the backpack ahead of time. If you find a backpack lying on the ground in a dungeon, step lively. You may be the next to flee the area in haste. So yeah, it gets really nerdy here, where you have to account for where things are. I mean, it sounds like you don't have to do that, but yeah, if you say that you're ditching your backpack, you had to have said what's already in it. So you probably are encouraged to do that. So I can carry up to 40 pounds of weight. And yeah, you can see all these packs contain up to 40. A full water skin weighs 21 pounds? Are you serious? I mean, I know water's kind of heavy, but that seems like a lot. This allows you to carry up to 5 drinks worth of water. Each drink has 4 pounds of weight. 4 pounds of water? That just seems like a lot to drink. Doesn't it? I don't know, maybe it's just me. It seems like a lot to drink. Oh, and then the water skin itself weighs a pound, I imagine. Yeah. For 21 pounds. Okay. Yeah, fuck it. We'll just buy the Wanderer. That's 14. That drops us down to 62. The thing is, you can't fit a single other thing in this backpack, you know? Well, it also comes with a belt pouch. Oh, it only comes with 10 feet of rope, though. Jeez. I would say that it's similar to Axe, of just like, I kinda like it if I was playing in a campaign and everyone was like kind of bought into the system and everyone was like, yeah, let's track weight, let's track all this stuff, and be like, yeah, all right, let's do it. Like it adds this really sort of grounded realism. But especially as a DM for my family and just like generally playing, I can certainly leave out like weighted encumbrance and everything, you know? I really I could take it or leave it. Because now I have to sit here and like add all these numbers up for my weight carried, and that's if I don't want to buy anything else, which I guess I don't need to buy anything else. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff you could buy, but And then it's like, I have a sack, I have a belt pouch. That information is not readily accessible as to how much it carries. The belt pouch holds up to 5 pounds. And then we have a small sack, and you have to scroll down and find small sack. I mean, you're going to write this information in, I guess. But yeah, it's not fast. It's not a fast process at all. And yeah, it says you might want to bring a few empty sacks in a dungeon delve if for no other reason than to carry treasure. The game assumes that the DM is going to be very anal about these kind of things. And you're like, well, you can't carry that. You don't have a sack to hold it. Where are you going to put it? You know, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, again, if I'm playing in a game like that, everyone's really into that, like, yeah, I can get into that. But my family, fuck that, man. Like, they already complain enough about just having, like, gear slots and stuff. So it's tough. And it's of the stuff I've read so far, that would probably be the first thing to go. You know, just in exchange for normal, typical, like, Shadow Dark gear slots. It's just so much overhead and bookkeeping and just work that I don't think generally adds a lot of fun to a game. I think it adds realism, but not necessarily fun. If I was playing a video game, like, that's a whole other thing. Like, then everything gets auto-calculated and everything, like, that's all good. And maybe in the future, when we all just have AI companions just in our brains, and it's all just auto-tallying all this and keeping track of everything, and it's like, all right, sure. But most of the time, this is just kind of bookkeeping that strictly slows down a game, as people have to write in all this stuff. And especially if you're playing with just paper and pencil, and you have to keep erasing stuff and rewriting stuff. It's way too much, man. I think I saw an interview with Chubby Funster where he says that he, like, exclusively plays with virtual tabletops now. That might be an indicator here that sort of informed his design decisions. I don't know. Look at all these catalysts. Look at all this shit. Look at all this shit. Trophies. Trophies are items taken from the corpses of monsters that have been killed. They can be used to create a spell-like effect, forge into a unique weapon or armor, or provide a unique bonus. Okay, very much Axe-like. Although, Heroes of Adventure also had a similar system that we just never utilized. So yeah, there's a lot here. Bear Claws, Chimera Hearts, Devil Tails, Dragon Scales, Elk Antler Velvet, Fairy Wings. Probably for a lot of different stuff in the bestiary, you have something here. It's like a Basilisk Tooth. You can remove 2 of them from each corpse. You can wield it as an improvised dagger that deals 1d10 plus 2 damage per hit. However, it has no bonus to hit. It's not considered a magic weapon. Bloodworm Venom Sac. If the sac is squeezed in combat as a touch attack, it can squirt the venom all over an opponent. It will permanently stain any clothing. And they must make a dexterity throw to avoid being paralyzed for 1d4 round. Okay, so it's not nearly as robust and, like, extensive as Axe system is, which just has every creature has some component that can be harvested for magical purposes, and it's all related to, like, well, I mean, here's an example. Spitting Cobra. You can take the fangs, and they're valued at 7 gold pieces for magic. You know, their magical property, whatever, for magic research. And they can be used for anything related to the Cause Blindness spell and the Poison spell. And then the Tongue, it's for 6 gold piece each, related to Snakes to Staff spell and Staffs to Snakes. And you can use that for, like, for anything. That can be a potion of staffs to snakes. That can be a wand of poison. That can be a sword that causes blindness when you hit once per day. Anything. Like, it's entirely up to you. It's a very flexible, robust system. And it's part of what makes the Axe Bestiary like the best one I've ever looked at. This one is way simpler, and it's just like, hey, you kill the basilisk, you can use their teeth as improvised daggers. They deal quite a bit of damage. That's kind of it. Buffalo horn. If you get 10 horns, they can be brewed into a stew or soup and consumed. And then you get double your normal movement rate for 2d4 turns, and you deal an additional 4 points of damage if you charge in battle. Like, yeah, stuff like that. Like, it's a very specific, clear-cut purpose, but it does encourage you to, like, be mindful of what you're killing and what it could be used for. So I like it. I mean, I think it's very solid. I just kind of like Axe system better, but that's as a player. As a DM, for especially, like, people like my family I DM for, they would be much more likely to utilize this stuff rather than all the things available through Axe magic research and stuff. So yeah, it's a pretty extensive collection here. Rules of play. I might end the video here and we get into this in the second one, because we also have to go over the whole spell. So this will be a very lengthy video if I don't cut this into 2 parts. So we'll cut it into 2 parts. We got through character creation and everything. We have Grug. The lethality seems kind of high, right? I don't know if we figured out our armor class. I guess it would be... What did they say it was? Oh, that was at the checklist. $10 plus whatever armor you're wearing plus your dex mod. So it'd be 11 plus 1, 12 plus 2 is 14. So he's got a 14 armor class, 6 hit points, and the average weapon is doing like D6 or D8 damage. So it's definitely seems slightly lethal. His attack bonus is 2. I don't think he has any blanket saving throw bonus. I don't think so. I think that's mostly correct. And then, oh, human, he gets to be fluent in 1 additional language. Okay, it'll be Orc. Yeah. That's it. And then I could tally up the weight that he's carrying, I suppose. Let's see. 25, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 40, 48, 51, 61, 66, 70. He is exactly at his encumbrance weight. Cannot pick up another thing. Okay, well, that's that. That fucking water skin weighs you down so much. Well, anyways, we can dump out water. Yeah, so we'll get into the rules of play next time and see how specifically combat works. We'll finally find out what a Vanguard is, and then we get into the very fun section of magic. And then we'll look at the bestiary as well to see how the monsters stack up. After that, if we're still interested and invested, then we'll probably do some sort of one-shot or something. I would say so far I do like a lot of what I have seen as far as an OSR game is concerned. I do like the classes especially, I would say, is kind of the nitty-gritty of what we looked at. You know, they're definitely a bit more involved than something like an OSC class or something like that, or even like a Shadow Dark class. There's a lot more options. They all have very unique aspects to each of them that separate them from one another. You know, like a knave is quite different from a brigand in practice. But also at the end of the day, they are still pretty simple, right? Like, there's nothing too wild about these classes. The brigands get backstab, which can come into play sometimes. And that's kind of it. You know, they get some slight bonuses to, like, escaping from bonds or dealing with criminals. That's sort of it. Otherwise, they're just like, you know, a fighter. So it's certainly not as, like, modernized as, say, Tales of Argosa, where every class gets a lot of, like, kind of fun little gimmicks and toys to play with, even at level 1. It is pretty old school in that most classes just are pretty basic at level 1 and don't have a lot to mess around with. It isn't just like, I swing my club, or I shoot my bow. But the followers, and having followers at level 1, that is a pretty fun thing. And again, it really points towards, like, sort of a hex crawl sandbox kind of campaign. But if you're just going to be doing like we would do as a one-shot, just like, here's a dungeon, go through the dungeon, most of those followers aren't going to have any sort of impact. Yeah, unless maybe, like, the Vanguard, I guess. He has a soldier that helps out. So yeah, a lot of the classes, they're a little bit more interesting than like a very basic game, but they're also not too modernized, they're not too complicated, they're not too involved. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to look at the rules of play and the magic to really make a full assessment. So far, I would say I still think it's a pretty tough sell for me personally compared to Tales of Argosa with, like, Axe Bestiary and Axe Magic and Axe Rules. It's just kind of tough for me to pull away from that, just because I love the roll under mechanic so much. I love that they have higher hit points at level 1, so you're less likely to die. I love that there's the minor exploits, the major exploits, stuff like that. So we'll have to see. But, you know, again, like, it's hard to say, because I'm not that diehard into the OSR, you know? Like, I have no interest in playing, like, OSE or Swords and Wizardry or basic fantasy role-playing, like, games that actually are meant to really emulate, like, BXD&D. I don't have a lot of interest in that. I like sort of the newer takes on it. I like Shadow Dark, I like Tales of Argosa, stuff like that. Heroes of Adventure. So I do think this game slots a little bit more into an actual, like, old school game. I'd certainly rather play this so far compared to OSE, but again, you know, you're only going to play so many games. So it's a tough competition out there in the OSR. But all right, we're not done looking at what the hell is the name of this game? Ambition and Avarice, 2nd edition. We'll finish looking at it, but for now, my name is Mang. This has been Solo Roll Manging, and I'll see you fine folks in the next part.